Okay, I think we are ready to go. And I can start to very warm welcome everyone, good evening everyone, here in Essen at our wonderful BRYCK tower, but also everyone outside sitting in front of your computers using our stream. We are so happy to have you at our third Livable Future Meetup on behalf of BRYCK. And this time, this meetup is focusing on the future of healthcare. And this topic is only possible because we just started this wonderful partnership with the University Hospital of Essen. Thank you very much, guys, for pulling this partnership off. Only with you, we can really focus on this very interesting topic for this evening. My name is Kohler. I'm the Director of Startups here at BRYCK, and I will be your host for this evening. Very happy about that. So I tell you what is going to happen tonight. So we will have a little introduction from me again, talking like a few minutes about what BRYCK is all about, because we are still a new kid on the block. And then we will enter right away the first highlight, which is the keynote of the successful healthcare entrepreneur and professor Daniel Gotthardt, streamed in live from Heidelberg, and he will talk about the future of healthcare. And then right after that, we will start with the second highlight, and this will be the panel. And I'm so happy that I will have 3 people here on stage, and maybe you expected Lars Zimmermann. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it. But we have Professor Jens Kleesiek, we have Professor Herrmann, both from the University Clinics of Essen, and very spontaneously, we have a third person later on, Peter Moll from Amazon Web Services, being here on stage for us. And a very cool person, actually, for talking about technology in healthcare and what are the opportunities and what are also maybe the hurdles. So this is what is going to happen today, and then we are done with the official part and we enter the networking here in Essen. Unfortunately, not with everyone in front of the computers, but this might be a good reason to come to Essen next time. Okay, so let me start what I just said. Okay, now we have some other aspect for you, and this is the fact that we want you to be very active in the panel discussion later on. So please throw us your questions. And we don't do it with the microphone because we also want to integrate everyone in front of the screen. So maybe you take your phone now and then you type in the address field sly.do, because this is the tool, and you can of course also at home do that, because this is the tool that we are using for accepting your questions. And then if you enter sly.do, a page comes up, and then you can enter a code, and here you enter future healthcare in one word, just as you can read it here, with a capital F and a capital H. And if everything works out, then you should from then on be able to ask us questions. But we will only accept them for the panel later on, so you don't have to start it right away. Start it, please, as soon as we start the panel. Is this working for everyone? I see nodding people typing something. Yeah, wonderful. I get the thumbs up. I like that. So, what is BRYCK all about? Let me say a few words about BRYCK, about our why, because it is our mission to inspire and empower entrepreneurs and innovators to develop solutions for a livable future. And we know that, of course, we are not, and this is good, that we are not alone with this wonderful mission. There are already accelerators out there, there are already innovation hubs out there, corporate meet startup programs. And what we do here is at BRYCK, we bring all that together and we build on that. So we say, we amplify what is already successful, and we co-create what is still needed. And a wonderful example for this co-creation is the Startup Sprint program that we started 1 month ago together with the University Hospital of Essen, because we thought this is an element, this is really still needed in the ecosystem. So we understand ourselves, BRYCK as a platform. So it is our top job to bring together the different players that are needed for driving innovation. And of course, startups play a very important role, universities, investors. And today we had the investor and client pitch of our Startup Sprint program. So we had many of those players already here. At the moment, or until now, since the beginning of the year, we worked already with 20 startups. In total, there are 30 startups, members of BRYCK already, and this number is growing and growing, and we are very happy about that, but we are also happy about all the partners that support us in supporting the startups. So this is the 4 different services that we are offering. So here in this wonderful tower, we offer space and co-working. I told you about the startup support program already. We do co-innovation projects, and we do lots of networking, just as we do today, because it is our job to bring together the right people. So here in this wonderful space, we have 2,500 square meters of co-working space and curated community. And maybe I talk about the main part, which is the Founder Lab in the first floor, which offers office space and also a curated community for startups, for most of them for free, because they are part of our program. So we really want to push them and to give them the best start into a successful business. But we also have in the other floor the innovation space for innovators and for other entrepreneurs and companies also using our co-working space and being part of a very vibrant community that is growing here in Essen, and we are very happy about that. The startup programs, I talked a little bit about that already. We have the core of this program is the 10-week sprint program, and this is a very tailor-made program. This is something where we thought this is still needed. We need a program that is focusing on startups that are going to market or growing on the market, that need access to the industries they are active in and access to investors to really grow their businesses. It's a very tailor-made thing, and the main parts is the support of the mentors on the business side and the experts on the industry side. So this is what we are focusing on a lot, and I told you already that we started 1 month ago our healthcare startup sprint program, and the startups participating in this program are also here in the crowd, so later on you can reach out to them and talk to them. And yes, I said we do also do co-innovation with corporations and other players, giving them access to startups and helping them with innovation. And as we said, creating events is something that we at BRYCK really like and really push forward, because we think, of course, it's about building business, but it's also about having fun together, being creative together, and this is where events play a very important role. So, that's it about BRYCK. If you are interested to learn more, many people from BRYCK are here tonight, so please reach out to us. It's always a good idea to follow us on LinkedIn, because there you can really see what we are doing. You have the very active information all the time. And this is now the moment where I stop my presentation, and I'm more than happy that I can introduce our keynote speaker. I hope he's already there, but I think everything works out. Ah, wonderful. Daniel, I see you already. So I am so happy that we can now welcome Professor Daniel Gotthardt, who is the CEO of the Gotthardt Healthgroup, and used to be a senior physician, in gastroenterology at the University Clinics of Heidelberg. But maybe you introduce yourself much better, Daniel. We're so happy to listen to your keynote about the future of healthcare. The stage is yours, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. You can hear me, I think.
Yes.
And thank you for giving me the opportunity to giving this talk. And although right now I'm looking at 4 empty chairs, I'm pretty sure that more people are listening, and that you will have a great time, and that you already had a great time. Yes, I will start sharing my screen. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen. If not, shout out loud. Okay, thank you. Thumbs up. Yes, so I would like to start with the vision statement of the company. I will start with some facts about the company, but also already start what I think about future of healthcare. And oh, now I see more people. Thank you very much. And then I will also go through 6 hypotheses about digital medicine in the future, and give my thoughts about that. So the vision statement for the company is empowering patients and physicians with software that improves health and prolongs life. And yeah, of course, we put a lot of effort into the vision statement and thought about it. I think it resembles what I want to do. And so I used to work at the hospital for 13 years. And yeah, 6 or 7 years ago, I decided to pursue my medical career in digitalization. And yeah, people ask me, is it not bad or sad that you are not a doctor anymore? And I say, I'm still a doctor. I'm just treating on a broader range. But so I think a lot of good things can be done with the software. I like to empower patients and physicians, but of course, software and processes that are supported by software can also be used to direct patients and physicians in a more or less strict way. And I think this is also one has to keep in mind that if you have perfect platforms and you can address every aspect, then of course who guides these platforms and who sets the rules. I think that's a more principal aspect, but I think that really has to be considered. So I'm following the empowering part. So Gotthardt Healthgroup was founded in Heidelberg, is still in Heidelberg. We have around 60 people, a lot of physicians, computer scientists, psychologists, designers, life scientists, and we work on different solutions for the healthcare area. It's mainly 3 products that are in the market. One is the Praxisdienst. It's an AI software for outpatient physicians, which Professor Kleesiek took a big part in, and I think it's quite successful. Then we have Mediteo. It's our app for patients, and we have Medical Brain, which is a decision support system mainly for hospitals. So the Praxisdienst, I just go into briefly. It's workflow integrated, so each physician has its Arztinformationssystem, which he is using to administrate his practice, and we are integrated in that. And by that, we can analyze the patient record of the individual patient, and what we call it, extend the physician's intuition and give hints about what might be suitable for this patient. And it's an AI system. It's a rule-based AI system. So I think you probably have heard a lot of machine learning. And of course, in Essen, there's a very strong community in regard to that. But regarding to regulatory concepts, we still like more rule-based approaches. We also have Mediteo. It's, I think, the best, of course, I have to say that, or one of the best medication apps in Germany. And the idea here is really to address everything that helps patients to get along with their therapy. Of course, this starts with the reminder function, but it also gives some information, and patients can try out what they want, and they can use as much as they want from this. But of course, it's not mandatory to use everything. You can also just use the reminder function. Everything is fine. And then we use an ontology-based approach for our clinical decision support, and this is mainly directed for hospitals. So it's a backend service. You can sort of address specific problems, and then you get recommendations. And the main problem we try to address with this, or one approach, was the vast increase of knowledge, of medical knowledge, by having this knowledge representation by ontology, like a specific system, like it's a specific form of database, some would say, and but it could help that non-IT people could add to this knowledge quite easily. And I think this is also one of the big challenges, how really to represent this specific knowledge and this vast increase in the everyday life of physicians and patients, and of course all other healthcare professionals. That would be to like what I'm doing and what I'm thinking regarding to the products that we have developed. And now, as I promised, I would like to talk a little bit about 6 hypotheses. These were not created by me. They were created by Mr. Reichel and Mr. Kalmer, as some of you might know. And but of course, they also had some thought on that. I think I also have some different thoughts about these hypotheses, and these I think I would like to share. So one is that, regional networks or managed care organization, and they will take over the guidance of different healthcare professionals in geographically defined areas. And I think this has already been done in the United States. There are a lot of managed care corporations, Kaiser Permanente. There are partly insurance companies together with hospitals and outpatient clinics and pharmacies. And I think this really makes sense because the patient journey is so complicated now. And it really, you really need somebody to guide this and also to make sure this information is transported correctly. And I think this is due to the fact that, first of all, we have much more chronic diseases than we used to have. I mean, in former times, it was like you had an hospital inpatient setting, you had a private practice physician, like outpatient setting. And for severe stuff, you go to the hospital, then it's fixed, you are discharged, it's fine. And then if it's not so severe, you can go to the physician. But I think this really changed because now we have, compared to former times, much more chronic diseases. People live with these diseases 10, 20, 30 years. We have very good therapeutic measures to address these diseases. And it will make people live much longer with these diseases. And there will be, like, very often an intermediary state, so that people are not sick enough to go to the hospital, but are too sick to be managed quite well by a 10-minute appointment at a private practice physician. So I think for this states, you need a different kind of managed care. And of course, it used to be that people could stay in the hospital for weeks or months in these states. But first of all, this is not cost efficient and probably also not very good for the health of the patient, because it is known that it's better if he's at home and managed well there. So I think the system will get is much more complicated, and there needs to be somebody, some institution who guides a patient through this system. I'm not saying that this is just one conglomerate. It can be like virtual. It can, so that it's really still independent hospitals, independent physicians who connect under some roof. Maybe it's also a big entity who owns, which owns hospitals, which owns practices and things like that. They can be privately owned, they can be publicly owned. Maybe it will be a mixture of these systems. At least this is the status right now in the States and also in other countries. And I think there's also progress in this direction here as well. I mean, there's this big movement to reduce hospital beds, and on the other hand, you have these more connections between hospitals and private practices through this construct of medizinische Versorgungszentren. Yeah, and I think this has to be done, and I think this will also help to not only to reduce costs, but also to give a very good treatment to patients. So the second hypothesis is that the next step in digitalization will be in brownfield. So what does it mean? So that there are already a lot of systems running, and you cannot just say, oh, they are so old, we should do better, we remove everything and we build everything from scratch. This might be, this might appear like very nice or like in paradise, but I'm pretty sure it cannot be done in this way. There's so complicated, different small solutions. I think it's not possible to do this in just one move, and because it's also a lot of resources. So, but for this, of course, interoperability is very important. You need some common, at least some common data model, some common interfaces to start with, and I think this is something that needs to be done, and then you can start, renovating your IT infrastructure and adding new things, but also replacing old things one step at a time. This, for me, especially these interoperability and interface topics, is very important that this is addressed in a very good way by the government, because I think, who else should decide on that? Of course, they should be guided and advised, but I think this needs to be done. And then, of course, within the entities, you need somebody who really push the migration strategy, that you do not do something and then stop. Hypothesis 3 is something, of course, that we started to try to with Mediteo, that the patient journey begins at home, and that the participation of patients in the whole journey is very important. And this has been shown through many studies, that if you have shared decision-making, participation of patients in the decision process, that this really enlarges therapy success a lot, because you address the obstacles in a very early way. And this is a change that's, I think, going on now for 20 years. When I went to medical school, this movement was just starting, that you involve patients much more, and I think this really will continue, and I think it's not possible to go back, that you just tell the patient what to do, and I think that's good. And for this, of course, you need to inform the patient in a good way, and you also need good ways to communicate between different healthcare providers, healthcare professionals with patients. This, of course, starts with like scheduling, finding appointments, finding the right doctor, but also includes every other step, providing information and for example, before a stay in the hospital, and then of course afterwards. But it's really, there are also different concepts that you say everything is centered about the patient, so that appointments are made with the patient and not the patient makes appointment with the physicians. In the end, I'm not so sure if this will happen, because just of organizational topics, probably it will stay at least for quite some time, that the healthcare professionals are the ones who guide this. But there are discussions if you like put everything with the patient. So then hypothesis 4, telemedicine, telemonitoring will contribute significantly to efficiency gains in healthcare. I think that's pretty clear. I think this is also relates to what I said, to hypothesis 1, that this intermediate states where people are have this disease but are not but can live their life but still have this disease, and they need to be monitored, they need to be treated, and this of course can then be supported by telemedicine and telemonitoring. I think this will increase quality of life for patients a lot, because they can follow what they would like to do, and they don't have to go to the physician very often. And still, there's the opportunity to identify problems early, and you can then really address this. For example, there are studies for I remember for patients with cancer, and there were two arms, and one was the like treatment as usual, and the other ones were supported by a telemonitoring service. That was a very basic service. I think they were asked once a week or every 2 weeks, do you feel well, and some very basic stuff. Took only a couple of minutes, and then if there was a change in well-being, they were asked for surveillance appointment right away. And what you could see is that survival is not so often, the benefit of survival is not so often reached in clinical trials, but they showed a benefit in survival in the group that was asked these basic questions by just a very basic questionnaire on their computer, or on their smartphone, and they could show that they had the benefit of survival because the recurrence of the cancer was detected early, because you know that there are changes in well-being very early in the case of recurrence, or it can be very early in the case of recurrence, and then you could detect the cancers early. So I think this telemedicine and telemonitoring is not only a tool for efficiency, but really for prolonging life. And what we will find out using all these, I don't know, smartwatches or other devices, I think we do not know yet, because this huge amount of data that you track everything many times a second, and you can really check for outliers that hint to problems. I think this is really a complete new field in regard to medicine, and this can really open up a lot. So then I come to hypothesis 5, and I think something that is discussed now everywhere, got a push during Corona, but was also there before. And of course, that mobile work allows for completely ways of organization, and also can enhance productivity. And first of all, you can think about physicians visiting a patient at home or at a care facility, and you check for them. And of course, if you have all your information with you, you can also document very early, very easily. Everybody can see that this can help. But also, there's a lot of part-time workers now within with the group of physicians, for example. And usually it's a problem that if you say you are, I don't know, in the hospital on the ward only in the morning, and then you go home. But of course, if you can check, for example, you go home and then you have another half an hour later in the afternoon, and you can check lab values and you can check results and react to them. Then, of course, for emergency, you still need somebody there. But for like pure management, this can be done from home as well. And I think this will enlarge the workforce and the potential workforce, and can also make work more efficient. And the last hypothesis is that an optimized human-machine interaction bears a lot of potential. And I think this you can see within a lot of areas. That, of course, great is that you have conversational AI and speech to text and text to speech. And this, of course, is only the top of this list, but also really refurbishing old ways to enter information and to provide this really can save a lot of work and remove a lot of burden from people who work within the healthcare sector. And I think if you look at surveys with people who work in the healthcare sector, physicians, nurses, whatever, one of the big topics they usually complain about is that they have to document so much and sit in front of the computer so much and cannot interact with human beings, namely their patients. And I think if you can optimize that, reduce that by, I don't know, just 10% would help, but if you reduce it by 90%, that could be great. And I think there are a lot of progress made in other areas, and as often medicine adapts later, and then I think this will also help to improve the treatment by a large amount. And I just said that medicine, the area often adapts later. I think that's people are cautious because, of course, it's great if you use software because you can, if you do it, you can do things a million of times, but of course, you can do them also a million of times wrong. And then you might have done a lot of harm. And I think, therefore, it's good if you are a little bit slower and cautious. But I think, of course, we should use all that's available to improve the life of patients and the work of healthcare professionals. Yes, and that was the last hypothesis. I hope that it gave some thoughts and some ideas and some inspiration. And with that being said, I would like to ask you to empower patients and physicians and not put them in a very strict measurement by software. But thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very nice evening discussion and some nice food, drink and eat something on my behalf. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Daniel. That was really a wonderful keynote, giving us a wonderful basis for the panel discussion coming up now. I see you here in the screen. Thanks a lot. Really so many opportunities laying in front of us for the future of healthcare, and it was very informative. Thanks a lot. Unfortunately, we don't have you here. Next time you're here with us in Essen, and then we can also
that would be great. Thank you.
A longer discussion on. But now I have to do it with other people. But have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Goodbye,
thank you.
Daniel.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, so now we are coming to the second highlight, which is, as I already promised, the panel discussion. And I want to remind you that now it's really time to take your phone and also use Slido. Coming to the panel discussion now, this is an evening where we have to be very spontaneous, because I told you that I will be here on stage with Jens and Ken and Peter Moll, but unfortunately this is not possible because Peter wanted to help us out very spontaneously. Thanks you again for that. But he's not that long at Amazon, and he's not yet approved as a speaker, so he needs a certificate. We didn't know that, but yeah, okay. So this is the case, but we have so many spontaneous people here in the crowd, so I don't have a problem. I have another speaker, and I'm so happy that now I can introduce to you Jens Kleesiek, Ken Herrmann, and Johannes von Buren. Please join me on stage, and we will try to make that happen in a very spontaneous way. Yeah, you can sit next to me, please. The most spontaneous person in the evening is on my left. Thank you very much. And yes, as we didn't have time to do any exercise on that, I think I told you already, please use Slido. And I think we start with a little introduction. So maybe one after the other introduce yourself, and you don't have to start because you are spontaneous enough. So maybe we start with you, Ken.
So my name is Ken Herrmann. I'm a nuclear medicine physician in Essen. So who of you knows what nuclear medicine is? Martina, you're not allowed to answer? Okay, 2 out of 20. Long story short is we use radioactive substances for diagnostic imaging, but also for therapy. And one of the key reasons I'm allowed to speak here actually is because I'm going to build a new clinic. Actually not me, but there's a new clinic going to be built. And in contrast to these smart people here, I'm kind of the one who finally has to kind of deal with the patients, and we try to understand how we can prepare actually our building for the future of healthcare, because I know in the next 30 years, this will be the only building I'm going to deal with. So this is more or less the reason I was invited to the panel. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Jens, you can take over.
Yeah, hi, good evening. So my name is Jens Kleesiek. I'm also from the University Medicine Essen, heading the machine learning group at the Institute for Artificial Intelligence in Medicine. By training, I'm a radiologist and a computer scientist, and I guess these two professions are more known than nuclear medicine, so I won't ask the same question, but I expect higher rates in the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, my name is Johannes von Buren. So I'm also a physician. I've been trained in neurology originally, but I joined the business side. I'm now Chief Medical Officer from Wellster Healthgroup Group. It's a leading direct-to-consumer telemedicine company in Germany, and I've been building the company up as a physician from the start. So I hope to share some interesting perspectives. Yeah, physician from the start. So I hope to share some interesting perspectives. Yeah, from the real digitalization world to discuss it with Ken and Jens. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you all on stage here. So yeah, maybe we start the discussion with you, Jens, because you're at the Institute of Artificial Intelligence here in Essen of the University Clinic. So what are you actually doing there? What are the main topics you're working, and what are the trends that you are seeing? So you can answer one after the other.
Okay, let's see if I remember all the questions. But our slogan, our motto is actually from code to clinic, and we want to develop algorithms that we bring to the patient. So we want to solve real-world problems and find solutions and provide digital support for treatment for the patients. And we work on several topics. Actually, it's quite a broad range, from federated learning, augmented virtual reality, and various kinds of theoretical developments, also of new methodology. Especially, I think there are two major parts I am interested in, we are interested in. One is multimodality and integrating different information sources. So in medicine, we treat patients, we do not treat images, we do not treat text snippets, rather we have the holistic picture and want to integrate all information we have to support, to get a better diagnosis, to provide a better therapy for the patient. And this is something that is currently still missing in artificial intelligence. So we solve very narrow, specific problems like pattern recognition, but we do not take all the information we have at hand into account currently. And this is one of the topics we are working on. And the other topic we are working on, specific topic, is on weakly supervised or self-supervised methods in machine learning. So maybe also driven by the fact that I am lazy, and I think people, trained professional physicians, should not waste their time on annotating a lot of data, and usually for the current methods, for the supervised methods in artificial intelligence, you need a lot of training data, and we try to come up with methods that free the time of the physicians, the valuable time, and rather they can spend the time with the patient on different topics. And so we try to advance the field in this direction.
And how far are you from bringing this to the market or to the patient? Is it very the research field still, or is it really close to applying it in the hospital?
So we again, it's a broad field, and we have the entire range of projects. Some of them which actually do not have to be AI or machine learning. I think smart digitalization can already help a lot. And there might be rule-based systems, there might be simply integrating and displaying information that is available to the physician, which can do a lot of help. And in this direction, we have a very fantastic foundation, as to speak, technical foundation with a lot of data which is standardized, it's interoperable, it's available, and we deliver information extracted from this data to the physician. This is already in the field at the point of care. And on the other hand, there are currently methods we are working on which probably need a couple of more years to really be helpful at the point of care. So we have the entire spectrum.
Okay, wonderful. And you talked about the topic of telemedicine, I think. So is this a topic in your institute as well?
Currently, actually not. Like in the sense I mentioned, we have federated learning, so it's not. So we also work on methods where we can send algorithms to the different sites, different hospitals. It's a sort of telemedicine in that way, but not the classical. I think Johannes will talk about in a little while what you would conceive under telemedicine. So that's not a core topic.
Okay, so yeah, maybe this is the switch to talk about your main topics at the moment. So yeah, I'm not an expert, but I hear many people talking about telemedicine and all the potential and everything that we needed, but somehow it's not that applied yet, but maybe I'm wrong. So tell me a little bit, so how far is it already advanced, where do we see it, and what is your role in this ecosystem?
Yeah, so for me as a doctor, I think it was an interesting journey the last 3.5 years to see like a company growing from the first patients and now a couple of hundred of thousands of patients that we have treated already on our platforms. So Wells does build that we have like specific indication, specific platforms for topics like mental health, dermatology diagnostics, sexual health men, sexual health women, so topic specific telemedicine platforms where we kind of want to give the patient everything he needs for this specific topic. For instance, like a video consultation, or if you ask for like prescriptions, like structured questionnaires, or like digital therapies, stuff like that. So I think the future of telemedicine at least is kind of this broad spectrum. So not only always we understood like what I learned when I was still at university, it's a little bit for the family doctor if you live on the countryside and to be able to access some patient and maybe in radiology to send some radiology images. But what I've learned that
that's actually also the picture that I had.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But now what I learned is that there are now more and more platforms, for instance, in dermatology, diagnostics, mental health, there are different platforms coming up in different, where just the patient, because it's not reimbursed, it's not aligned to the stakeholders. That's, I think, where technology doesn't scale. That's a problem also for our company. And but that's what I learned, that there are some interesting things happen, but which is kind of in parallel to the system, to the healthcare system. So this is kind of an ecosystem which builds up, but which is only connected to our real healthcare system in not many aspects of it, actually. So this is what we have to work on. How can we get these two worlds together? Yeah, so the traditional system and kind of the telemedicine platforms that come up.
Okay, and what is exactly your role now with your company?
So I'm the chief medical officer. So I am kind of thinking.
So, and then more the company. What is the
what the company is doing. So we build indication-specific telemedicine companies, so platforms. Okay. So these are telemedicine platforms. Like the traditional players, they just do say, I'm the doctor and I'm doing telemedicine. But Wells does kind of building, like the most prominent is actually in urology. It's like Spring, there's HIMSS and Roman and Rory in the US. So Spring, it's a man's health platform where kind of men can get access to care. So they Google and they kind of like, I don't know, their problem they have, like a mental health issue or something, they come on the platform and there's kind of a whole spectrum of options for them, from digital therapies, we partner with them, to pharmaceutical products, to video consultations for this specific indication. And it has been pretty, like this has been growing a lot in the US, also in the UK. And here in Germany also the regulatory aspects are complicated, and I think for now it's also how we can integrate these two different worlds, I'd say.
This is the challenge you're working.
This is a challenge,
But do we need to integrate them? Or, because I think they're quite complementary, right? And when I prepared, I like the same as Laura, 10 minutes to prepare. I read one of the things you offer is Easy Derma, right? And then I looked, and Bild-Zeitung told me that there's no, but it's actually, I mean, everyone knows it's very difficult to get an appointment with a dermatologist, right? Second thing is we know every dermatologist we know gets 20 pictures a day from friends and family. Tell me what it is. This is real. and then I read about it, and I want you to comment. I would like you to comment about it. Is that there's actually apparently not yourself, but a competitor who says you can send us pictures, and we give you an opinion for 25 euros. So and technically, I think this is complementary, right? Because you see a picture, and you can say, okay, this is nothing serious, forget about it, or it's serious, and then you still have to go to the doctor. Is this correct?
Correct.
And that's why I think it's complementary. And I think this is actually, you should not try to necessarily compete or parallel, but really complement it. I think this is the way forward with many things in digitalization.
Yeah, thank you for the statement, Ken. So so it's one of our platforms actually, like Easy Derma. That's where if you have a dermatologic problem, like you Google, I need a like a dermatologist or something, then there's a Google ad from us, and it gets you on the platform, and then you can fill out a questionnaire. You take 3 pictures from different angles, and then there's a trained dermatologist on the other side, and in an asynchronous telemedicine. So he will look kind of at your answers in the questionnaire, and yeah, he will take a picture. We've actually an own mail order pharmacy, and then he can prescribe a medication which will be sent to your home. And I also actually do clinical studies also with these real-world data we generate there, and it's waiting times. This is the main reason, the main barrier why they use EasyDerma, our patients. So this is kind of how because they wait 3 months for an outpatient.
So the funny thing is, I'm sorry if I hijack this now, but this what they tell you is very advanced, right? I'm a very simple guy. I'm on the basis. And I'll give you an example of my daily life. Is we have a hospital, right? We have a clinic, nuclear medicine, and I do quality assurance. I always ask our patients, what do they like, they don't like. And I can tell you the major reason for complaint is bad food. It's boring because they have to stay for 2 nights with us, and no parking. And when you look at, and no one complains about medicine, and these are the 3 major complaints. And when you look at all these 3 complaints, I think all 3 of them, when you think about the future of healthcare, very basic, can be probably solved with smart digital solutions. Parking, you can know from the beginning if there's a parking or not, right? And where's the parking? Food, most likely if you give people the opportunity to choose, even 2 days in advance, they can at least, I mean, the quality still will not be Steigenberger, but at least you can make sure that the person who's a vegetarian doesn't get a meat roll. Yeah? And the third thing is, if it's boring, of course, also very easy if you give people access to either books, libraries, whatsoever. And just these 3 basic things, I would say 70% of my nurses deal with this stuff. And if we can really kind of solve these 3, I think, rather small problems, not federated learning, not even a fancy telemedicine app, it makes our life much, much easier. And this is like the easy level. The more complicated one, the more sophisticated one is the ones you guys talk about. But I would also always already be ready if we can tackle the first 3.
True that. Although I'm not so sure about the quality of food through AI, but okay, we can discuss that later on with food and drinks. But maybe I see many interesting questions in the chat already, but before I come to that, maybe you introduce us to your great project that you talked about in the beginning, so the new building, the new hospital that you're getting for the future of healthcare.
So we have the opportunity and also the challenge really to have like 1 dedicated building for nuclear medicine. And like I said, our patients have to stay in the hospital for 2 nights, right? So they're bored very easily. And but they're quite open, because when you're bored, you're open to try new things. And what I try to sell Jens, and that's why Jens and me work together very well, because I know nothing about IT. I can only switch on computer on and off. That's pretty much it. I told Jens what I want to have is like the Japan of consumer. I want to have medicine in my ward. Everything new which comes to our field needs to be available for our patients, because our patients are bored. They're very happy to try out new things. And this is what we like to call smart ward. And now I can tell you what my vision is, and maybe you can complement and tell me what we do on the back end.
We should have talked earlier about that, so maybe we have, no, just go ahead.
It's a spontaneous evening, you will manage.
No, go ahead.
No, you tell us.
It's already, yeah, I think we share the same vision. So establish a ward, entire space, ecosystem where we put all the things we develop, all the things we can bring in, like from these corporations with startups, and also new ideas from industry, the new ideas of tomorrow. And we want to integrate them into 1 system that is used by patients, by nursing staff, by the physicians, and they should, in real-world experiments, try out all the new things and keep the best ones, which make their life easier and therefore happier. And this might include things like food on one end. Like we actually looked into companies who have food robots, and they cook for you based on your preferences. But also things like communication we want to establish, so that the nursing staff has more time, because, for example, a chatbot asks answers easy questions, and only for the urgent and very important stuff they have to go to the to the patient room, but basically endless possibilities, maybe even telemedicine, where there are consultations of different departments and they do not have to leave the room. On the other hand, walking outside and not living only in the digital world is also very nice. So taking a walk from
but not if
time
really active.
this is
So, tell me, this is the physical building with physical people working, real people working there and using new technology, but in the back end you also want to have a platform where you can integrate all the different technology pieces that are part of this ecosystem. Okay.
That's right. So the entire slogan of the UME, University of Medicine Essen, is a smart hospital. I think there we are quite well known for in Germany, or at least if you Google smart hospital, Essen is the first hit in Germany. And we want to extend it to smart ward. And for this smart hospital, we already built a platform, so we have access to the patient data in a structured way, as I described earlier. And this is one building block, of course, but then we want to bring in more technology and more tools of the future.
What is your vision there then?
I mean, our vision is really to actually do two things at the same time. First of all, make sure that our patients are not bored anymore. And the second thing is really find out, test things which have the potential to be really scalable. And again, putting this into this perspective of BRYCK and the healthcare sprints, obviously there are a lot of young companies, right? And they usually lack the clinical translation. And this is something which we can guarantee. Maybe not everything. So, for example, luckily, majority of our patients are still continent, right? Because of the radioactivity, otherwise it would be a problem. But technically, we can try to actually translate many of the things we have seen also during the application process, and really test it and see is it really improving the patient care? Is it accepted by patients? Is it accepted by the staff?
Okay, cool. I think this is now the moment where I want to bring in a question from the audience, because it's a very good fit. Because so the question is, how difficult or costly is it to train users, health professionals, in the technology? And I think this could be one of the hurdles that you have there. So what do you think? What is your experience also, everyday experience?
I can maybe start with a very easy example. So my nurses, and again, no age discrimination, but they all have at least a 5, sometimes a 6. In the double-digit age, and we were asking to, when I told you about find out patient report outcome, where patients have to fill out on an iPad the feedback, right? And we were one of the 3 lowest in the completion rate in our hospital, and this really got me mad. So I tried to find out what was the problem, and the problem is that none of my elderly nurses were used to an iPad. So what we did is we actually bought a couple of iPads, gave them an iPad to use it at home. And within 6 months, we went from like the last 3 to actually number 1. We have the highest completion rate. And the hurdle was, in this case, that the nurses just did not know how to deal with the iPad. And I'm trying to say these are very simple problems, right? And I think this is, when you ask me what is the biggest challenge, you need to make it easy, intuitive, and you need to make sure the people who are at the last mile really buy in, and I think they want to do this. They're doing this work because they care about patients. You need to make it easy, and potentially you really have to invest into the training. Once this is done, there's a huge payback. But it's my practical vision.
Yeah, this is, by the way, also a wonderful suggestion for all the startups going into this area in healthcare, because this is exactly what you have to do. So you have to make it easy for the people who work with the technology, of course. Yeah. Maybe you want to add to that, because I don't know how it is in your day-to-day work, but I would assume that this might also be a challenge.
To train people for telemedicine, the doctors we work with, and yeah, I mean, I see it also depends a little bit on the age. So we have partner doctors who are in retirement already, and I see they deal differently with technology the older they are than maybe younger doctors and stuff. So it also depends kind of on the target group, I guess. Yeah, are you working with a doctor? Are you working with a nurse? The age, the background of that person. So I think you also have to adapt that. And yeah, we really have structured plans and very structured onboarding for them, so they can also look stuff up again. I think to make it easy for your user, I think that's really the most important, to make it the usability, and also always ask questions. So you start to build a product, then people start to use it, and then you do a questionnaire with them to improve it. So you can't have the perfect solution at the beginning. That's how we did it on our platform to learn from our partner doctors. Yeah.
Do you want to add something?
I can add or summarize. I think the two things that are really important is UI, UX, and this is also for startups, for everything. So you need to make not this big solutions, but really and cluttered user interface, but really targeted, easy to use interfaces. This is one thing, and the other thing also was mentioned, training in one way or the other. So these are the two most important things, and this will come, and it already has come to some extent. Also in the healthcare domain, that people get trained, and of course, if you use your iPad at home, if you prepare. So when we learn for our examination, I remember it was like this was like 21 books, I think, for the last examination, and you had to do the multiple choice question in there. And today you have an app, and this is simply one way of times change, and also with that you get used to the new technologies.
Yeah. We have a very good question with regards to that. So how well are the topics of data and AI and all the new topics, let's make that bigger, integrated in the current curriculum of future physicians? So I mean, training them that are on the job is one thing, but those that are becoming physicians, so is this already integrated, or do you think this is a huge topic?
So it's actually a nice bridge to the talk from Daniel Gotthardt earlier, because together, him and I, we established the course Digital Medicine in Heidelberg, where we actually took up this topic, this very important topic, and tried, of course, to share our vision, but also prepare the new generations of medical students for what has yet to come. And we actually also brought this course here to Essen. So we are working.
It's not obligatory, no?
But is
no,
it
it's not. It's not obligatory
yet.
yet.
In Germany, so is it?
So I think we won. I would say we were the first, maybe one of the first in Germany when we did this, and we started. I think 2015 with that.
I mean, Germany is known to be not very fast in adapting, and the same as for curriculum. If you just look, I mean, there's so many things, and I don't want to start complaining, but it usually takes 5 to 6 years to implement something new, and I think we have not even started to implement it. So it will take another 5 years until it's implemented if you start now. Okay. In the regular training, this is not obligatory, all this is optional.
Oh, it's optional,
and yeah. So, but it's absolutely right. It should be switched as fast as possible.
I have a great question here to make the picture maybe even a little bit bigger. So who should lead and who should follow in defining the future of healthcare? And here I mentioned like clinicians, but also policymakers, researchers, startups, corporates. I think that's a very interesting question. So how is the healthcare ecosystem structured? Which are the most important players, and who should really lead this journey of innovation? Do you want to answer?
Yeah, so I mean, from our perspective, certainly the patient, right? So because it's always like make it, he should be in the center, also in the care model, also from a doctor's perspective. I mean, the patient is in the center. And I think also what Ken talked about, I think it will shift more. I think this is what they address with the smart hospital, more from the care model is changing a little bit. We're going more to prevention, I think. And this is really patient-driven. So I see all these apps coming up, glucose monitoring, wanting to know about their own health, like you said, nutrition, stuff like that. So these easy things to optimize health before disease starts a little bit. So I think there's some shifts. And I think the consumer, the patient is leading that transition. And then on the other hand, I think to really scale the technology, and it's also what we talked about, I think for that, we need to align with the stakeholders, like the payers, the hospitals, certainly doctors, outpatient setting, like all these like ethics, like how do we deal with data? So all this, I think this aligns. So to really be able to scale technology, I think this alignment between these education within these groups, we talked about that. I think these are the most two important aspects from my perspective.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So the patient should be in the center, and if I ask or answer as a physician, I would say the physicians should lead. If I answer as a computer scientist, I would say the computer scientists. And so now, I mean, so not be kidding. I think it needs to be this interdisciplinary symbiosis between the different groups, and we need everyone on board to change things. And in the end, at some point, we are all patients. And so this should be really the center of it.
I agree, there has to be a joint effort. And I think the payers actually play a very important role. I mean, in the US, it's very easy, right? In the US, it's always just follow the money, and you will know exactly who's going to succeed. In Europe, especially in Germany, it's a joint effort, and the payers, I think, have much more influence than we very often think.
Okay. Talking about the ecosystem, are there new players that are coming in, right? So, I mean, we wanted to have Amazon on the panel. So, for example, the technology players. So what is their role now? And how important are they for you in this journey?
Start.
I mean, so it's very interesting. I learned today, for example, that even Henkel, which I was known as a big producer of detergents, is a big player in healthcare. So very often I think we first of all, I think there are many more players in healthcare already, which at least many of us are not aware of. I think number one. Number two is obviously you see now a lot of tech companies trying to enter the space. We also see that's not as easy. You see, Amazon entered with their own hospital system. And I think they left again, and maybe they try to restart again. I think it's work in progress, and we see a lot of people trying to come into the field because it's a huge market, it's a growing market. There's a lot of money to be made, but we also see a lot of people fail. So that's why I think it's for me impossible to really give a clear answer. I just think we need to be open and see that things are changing, and we see a lot of new players entering. There's a lot of opportunity, but it's also not as easy as it seems.
I think to add from a technology perspective, I think from big players in this area, and maybe even from different domains, there are a lot of technologies which are and can be used also in healthcare. It's from platform specific things, so infrastructure, hardware-wise, everyone knows that these GPUs, these graphic processing units, have been actually driven forward for gaming, computer games, but now they're actually at the core of training machine learning algorithms. So this is something which came from a different domain. And also, I used to say, I stopped saying this, but I will say it again. So I said a while ago, it doesn't really matter if you detect a traffic sign, so autonomous driving, or you detect a tumor in an MRI scan, because the technology is the same. And this is also for infrastructure technologies to have very fail-safe and fast responsive infrastructures like you need for streaming of movies. Also, these technologies, they can be used to provide people in the healthcare system, either for sophisticated stuff or for their daily work. And so I think there are also a lot of benefits coming from these multi-billion-dollar industries.
I want to talk for a minute about startups, because BRYCK is, of course, supporting startups a lot. We started this program together. So how difficult do you think it is to really enter the space for startups? And where do you see the potentials? Maybe both sides a little bit. The potentials, of course, but also where are the difficulties and what can we make easier?
I mean, there are many points which you need to be aware of when you compare. If the moment you enter healthcare, you have to talk about regulatory bodies. And this is not only in Germany, but it's also in the US, right? This is downside. Second side, it's a quite closed, complex market. Time from development, especially when you go like the direction of biotech to approval, is sometimes 10 years. Cost of studies is high. This is all the negative part. The really interesting part is, first of all, when we try to hire people who come from Google, who come from Metaverse, and we offer them a payment or a salary which is much lower, I always ask them, when you get up in the morning, what motivates you? You know, is it to motivate you to another application which no one really needs, or is it to cure people? And I think this is something really rewarding. Startups in healthcare is super rewarding. What you do, if you do something, you're going to make a difference. Second thing is, you also have to admit it's a growing business. Third thing is, if you make it to the market, it's financially also quite attractive. Yeah? There are a couple of multi-billion-dollar companies, starting from zero within 5 to 7 years, multi-billion-dollar companies. I think this is just showing very quickly what are the challenges and what are the opportunities. I'm 100% a person who thinks if the glass is half full, which means there's opportunity to get a second half of the glass, right? Other people are worried about it. I'm completely bullish. I'm believing in the field, and I can only encourage people. There's, from my point of view, nothing more exciting than a startup in healthcare.
You want to add something to that?
Yeah, maybe add a little more general thing. Maybe also a German European thing, which is that people often see the problems and put the problems in the middle of everything and stop doing things. And I think especially in this partnership, BRYCK and UME, I think we can facilitate certain things, not to disrespect privacy or ignore privacy or regulatory issues, but you can find ways and to put it with a sports brand, sometimes just do it, and this helps. And I think this is especially true for healthcare, because it's in the end it's not so much different than other domains. You just have to be aware of the pitfalls, but this shouldn't stop you to do things.
Okay, so I think the mindset is a very important one. I agree with you. However, I want to switch to a question that we have here. So how do we beat the bureaucracy in the German healthcare system that is stopping the possible innovation via data and AI and other innovations? So do you have a recipe for that? I think you're more victims of that, but maybe you have ideas.
Oh, how do you? So I wouldn't put it that negative. I could answer use technology. No, but I think you just have to continue working on what you believe in, and really find the right people again. So it's simply don't put the problems in front of it. Still, there are always solutions. And so far, I wouldn't concern myself as a victim. So I think we have been quite successful here in Essen, also in collaborations. So yeah.
I mean, there are two things. One thing is Germany has 80 million inhabitants, right? We have one of the biggest healthcare markets in the world. I mean, US is US, but after the US, Germany is a fantastic market. And I think what's very important is you should not be distracted from how much you have to do. My mentor, who was inventor of PET, Mike Phelps, he always says he was a big boxing aficionado. He said, 1 round at a time. And so it is, don't look at the 10 rounds, 1 round at a time. And that's actually how we also deal with the regulatory bodies. I don't look at the whole way, but I take 1 round at a time. And I try to win each round. And hopefully at the end I have 1 more than I lost.
Okay.
Yeah,
would you like to add something?
No, I 100. So also from my experience, I totally agree with them. So think about when you have to address it. So really start doing. And sometimes we had a medical certification of our platform, and then we just did it half a year later, and nothing happened. So also, what is the consequence? Really think about it. Will there be okay, it will be addressed, and it's okay if you start. I mean, you should start thinking about it early, but so. Do it and think about when do you really have to do it, kind of.
We have an interesting suggestion here in the questions, I would say. Not only just doing, but making it mandatory. So one says, so many doctors are skeptical about telemedicine. Would it be a good idea to make the offer of telemedicine mandatory? What do you think of that? Something like that, making kind of technology adoption mandatory.
For whom? For physicians to use it or for patients? So.
I would say for physicians. I don't know, it's not written here, but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think innovative doctors, like the two on the left side, I think they start to think about how they can use it, like for follow-up consultations after surgery and stuff like that. So this is kind of what I would expect, that they kind of have the mindset and think about how they can integrate it. And I think with all specialities, so I'm from the neurology part with stroke. So I was at the University of Zurich. We used it to treat patients in smaller clinics to support the internal medicine doctors via telemedicine. I think, I think there should be more focus on it from each discipline. So I think we don't do the maximum, and also not the doctors.
Okay.
But mandatory, I think it should feel more natural. So I think, I think they should be creative and thinking how can we improve the outcomes with telemedicine. We have to do clinical studies and show it in the end how it works and convince the doctors.
Can I say something? Making something mandatory is very German.
True.
Don't do it. Create opportunity and make it attractive, and then it will come by itself. That's my personal take.
Yeah, I also agree. So great solutions do not require that they are mandatory. Then people will use it.
I detected just another question that I think is very interesting, because you talked about those apps, and it also, I think it seems to be a little bit a lifestyle for a higher, let's say, so people who have more money, who have a better education and so on. So do you see that? And is there the difference? And how do we also attract everyone with those kind of apps and telemedicine activities?
So that's right. So at the moment, this is a big problem we have. So it's all a self-payer market. What I've seen, we've treated a couple of 100,000 of patients. So I see if I look at the data there, even in some situations, like in dermatology, if your child has an acute problem or something, they use it, because even if they don't have as much money, actually, if I look this, because the need is so high, right? And to go drive 30 kilometers to the next hospital, maybe they can't access a doctor, so the topic access is really important about telemedicine. I mean, for me, this would be, it has to be cheaper. What Ken said before, like how can we integrate the payers? They have to be more open-minded. We have to win the stakeholders over to show them that there's a really big benefit for our patients, and this is why I do clinical studies to show this patient benefit. This is what my clinical studies deal with, to ask the patients how was the quality of care, how can we improve it, how is it compared to the offline system, to really show the benefits also later to the other stakeholders. That's what we have to do. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you encounter this difference anyhow in your day-to-day job, this difference between patients in different social layers, I would say?
I mean, obviously, you also know certain diseases you find in different socio-economic situations. I mean, smoking and drinking is usually associated, not always, but usually associated with a, let's say, lower income. Prostate cancer is a disease everyone gets. Breast cancer disease everyone gets. You do see differences, of course, absolutely. And we also have to be fully honest. It's like we have even so we don't like to say this, but we have a two-class system in Germany. Yeah. We have private payers, and we have state insurances. My hospital, my clinic, cannot make a living of state insurances. We cannot. We need the private payers to supplement the state insurances. And I know we don't like to speak about this in Germany, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
There's a co-financing.
There's a co-financing, but is it really a separated treatment? It's not. I mean, this is
so far not at all. But if you talk about, for example, access to certain resources, I'm sure that someone who's a private patient gets a dermatologist appointment faster than someone who has a state insurance. I'm pretty sure about that.
And then it's also about reimbursement codes, and I don't know if these codes have been established, or I think Eagle-Leistung or some. So patients would have to pay for it, and this is also what needs to change and will change over time, that we will get reimbursement codes, and the same as going to a hospital and getting blood drawn, which is paid by the insurance. Then also when the algorithms runs on your data and does a prediction or recommends something, this also will be reimbursed at a time.
I mean, where I see it, that the reimbursement is so important. For instance, we have also the digital therapies, these DIGAs. They are now new with reimbursement in Germany. And actually, Wellster is the largest sales channel for digital therapies in Germany. So it's a huge sales channel on our platforms. And because you have often the combined therapy, for instance, one big indication is erectile dysfunction we treat. And there's also like a digital therapy for it. So you can do baseline trainings, like to do cardiovascular work, because it's also associated with cardiovascular risk and stuff, to improve. And so we can offer combined therapy, right? So, and this for free. And we really see, because this is reimbursed, it's with codes, like you say, there's like system in place. Actually, our former health minister, he established this, and there you can really use codes to reimburse that. And this really makes a difference for our patients. I think our politicians have to think more about that, how we can also get these technologies into our system and to reimburse it, to make it possible for startups to scale that.
Very important. Thank you. Okay. So I want to, you talked about hope, and I want to finish off with hope. So let's do a little round. So what would you like to see in future in healthcare? So what is your dream, Ken, in your building or somewhere else?
No, I mean, my dream is that we establish Essen as a hub for innovative digital healthcare in Germany. And this no less is accepted in 5 years from now.
Yeah, challenge accepted. What is yours?
that was the point I wanted to make. I think we really have a great collaboration, bringing every stakeholder, every party together here in Essen. BRYCK on the one hand, UME on the other side, startups, industry partners, and to bring this ecosystem forward. So when we Google smart hospital, as I said earlier, or healthcare startup ecosystem, Essen will pop up, and this is so similar goal. So we share the same vision, I guess.
That's a great
which is good.
What is your vision?
My hope would be that, I think in healthcare we have many silos, also in technologies. I talked about it, that technologies are not used. So there's already like many apps out there and stuff, but they're not used enough. We talked about the reasons to that. So my hope is that we overcome these silos, especially also with data. I think this is also interesting for you, because we have all these silos, and to overcome that, to be able to use this data in a combined way, to analyze that and makes us the benefits out of that for our patients. Yeah.
So Laura, before you now finish off, I don't know if I'll ever be invited to a panel again. And I want to take the opportunity to do one thing. I want to say thank you to Laura. Because when we started 4 or 5 months ago, first of all, I didn't believe that we would be delivering. We delivered. But what you pulled off since then is absolutely miraculous. The whole thing today is pretty much because of you. And that's why I wanted to ask you kindly to share with me, to have a big round of applause, Laura, because it's amazing what you did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, you were not allowed to say that, but thanks a lot. Very nice. I want to thank you guys for this wonderful panel discussion. Thank you for being so spontaneous. You made it brilliantly. Thank you very much, dear audience, for being with us, for those wonderful questions. And everyone on the stream being remotely with us, thank you very much. We were so happy to have you. This was our 3rd Livable Future Meetup, and there will be a next one, but most probably next year. So stay tuned, follow us on LinkedIn, and then we will be very happy to see you here next time. So have a wonderful evening, and we will now start the networking with drinks and food. Thank you very much.